Okay, it's 12:45, so let's reconvene. And I know it's been a long day. We're down to the last two, and so we're really going to try to finish up by 2 o'clock here. And to start us off, we're now on to improve organizational health. And to do the staff presentation, I'll turn it over to Dustin.
Thank you. All right. Next slide, please.
Dustin, you're on mute.
Oh.
I could hear him, Jim.
I could hear him too, Jim.
No, he was good.
Okay.
Or we can't hear you, Dustin.
No, Jim, we can hear him. One second. Let me text Jim.
Oh, never mind. It was me.
Okay. Okay, next slide. Here we go.
All right.
It was me. Sorry.
That's okay. No problem. So I won't go through these two slides in detail because there's a lot. And I know you guys have the information in front of you, but as you can see, it encompasses a lot of areas of the organization, very important areas of the organization. What I am happy to report on is that many of the organizational health projects are on track to meet the original timeline, with only a few that have extended or been shifted due to the impacts of COVID, which has also created quite a few new projects, which you'll see. Next slide, please. And you can go.
Sorry, there's two slides on this one. So I'll move on to the next.
All right. So, this is just a few of the new projects, but staff moved swiftly with the rapid onset of the pandemic to initiate a response to make sure that the organization remained productive and met the needs of the community. Excuse me. This slide highlights a few, including a few of those accomplishments, including rollout of about 200 laptops to staff throughout the city, which took serious foresight by our IT department. So kudos to them to get ahead of the surge in demand for the equipment that thankfully we were able to obtain shortly before the shelter in place took effect. The city also worked to design and implement protocols for COVID-19 testing and tracing for both the community and the organization, ahead of the majority of the other communities in the Bay Area. We also worked to switch to a 100% virtual offering of not only our meetings, but also a bouquet of training for staff throughout the organization, and enhanced the employee wellness program to assist in offering folks as much flexibility and benefits that we possibly could. I'm also personally working to both balance the budget and reduce the use of city reserves, and trying to recover as much as possible of the funds that the city spent in COVID specific efforts. Next slide, please. All right. As you're all aware, the voters of Hayward approved a measure that allows the city council to increase the transient occupancy tax. I'm very aware, as is council, they have not exercised that power. But when it does and the economy recovers, we will begin to recover. We'll begin to see increased revenue in that area, which will help to continue to improve the city's fiscal future. I mentioned the laptop deployment before, but staff in many departments also have multiple times throughout the pandemic continued to pivot and offer platforms for public meetings that included community participation. Internally, we began to offer multiple additional technical and leadership training opportunities for all levels of the organization, and have revamped the performance management tool that the city uses. All of this sort of mid-pandemic, if you will. Next slide, please. This slide is specific to the efforts in communications, which, I think the demand or desire for communications from the city was high even before the pandemic. But with the onslaught of the pandemic, the growth and demand for it has increased dramatically, and we've also seen a tremendous growth in virtual attendance for city meetings, and the desire for additional information has been it's unending, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but we've seen a desire for it in ways that we have not necessarily in the past. The city's met these demands, and in a lot of ways led the charge for many of the other agencies that used the work that our team has done to model after in the way of holding public meetings, allowing public participation, the communications out to the community, all of those things. In addition, they're currently working on the back end update of the city's website. It's underway, and they will continue to improve the city's already award-winning website. And it is on pace, and hopefully we'll finish within the expected timeline. Next slide. So this slide highlights some of the challenges that we're facing in the current year, and will likely face into the next fiscal year. Much of the work in this area is contingent on what the state and county will allow for workplace safety, bringing people back to the workplace, bringing people back, opening up in the community. We continue to monitor the situation and are proactively trying to stay in front of what's coming. But this effort uses a tremendous amount of resources in multiple departments as new regulations emerge. Obviously, the local economy also impacts the organization's finances, given many of the city's revenues are economy driven. Council is well aware that the city manager and I are committed to keep the city's fiscal health in all of our decisions. Another unforeseen threat to the organization is the increase in virtual threats and attacks. The team has worked diligently to thwart these attacks, but remains vigilant. We all recognize the efforts around communicating COVID-19 related efforts, both internally to the organization and community as vaccine rollout continues. The demand for communication increases by the moment. This demand will grow with the reduction in restrictions and will continue to strain the high-performing but small group of employees that is our communications department. Next slide. And I will kick it over to Jim.
Yes, thank you, Dustin. And then quickly, again, we asked you about comfort level, and are these the projects on the right list? Again, the bell curve seems to center around agree, with some long tails around both sides of very comfortable to neutral, or very strongly agree to disagree. Next slide. We asked your priorities in this. It was develop, implement, and support remote technology, permanently address social distancing in office spaces, develop talent acquisition plan, want to understand more about the changes made in items 11 and 12, address PERS and healthcare costs, and OPEB. In terms of delay, employment engagement will have to be modified, marketing the loop, business license, tax, and training policy. And then the one suggestion for a drop was to possibly skip one community satisfaction survey. Next slide. Additional projects that staff thought related to others or was in a council work session: website user-friendly, keeping an equity lens on professional development opportunities, how to retain staff, and technology and data transparency improvements for public safety. So next slide. We will go to the dot voting. So again, if you could put your listed projects in the chat when you're ready, and we will go ahead and do that. And
This is another one that has 2 slides, so I'll stay on here and then I'll toggle.
Yeah, has 2 slides, so we'll give you a chance to see this. Give maybe a minute or 2 on this, and then we'll go to the others. Once you put your vote ins, once everyone has put their vote ins, Councilmember Marquez, you're going to go first. And so maybe if all the vote is in and we're just recording it, I might have you go while we're still recording the vote. Maybe your cat has a vote.
Too many cats to count and a dog.
Excellent.
Are we going to switch to the next slide yet?
I will do that now.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry.
Excuse my dessert. I'm used to 1 hour lunches, so it was a little rushed.
No problem.
Jim, would you like me to start or do you want to wait? It's up to you.
We are just waiting for council member. Oh, there we go. Yes, council member Marquez, can you please start?
Yes. Okay. So again, I appreciate staff's resilience, staying nimble. I know it's been a very challenging year. This list is way too long. It was way too long when we adopted it. So clearly we have a lot of eager staff and I appreciate that, but I think it is good to narrow down the focus. So for me, and to take things off the list so we can actually execute these priorities. So 1B is a huge one, just ensuring that everyone can maintain their benefits, that we have enough funding to fund the post-employee benefits, advocating for healthcare costs. That's all very, very important. 1C is also important to me. I just think in light of COVID, we're not ready to move forward with that. So some reservations around that one. Racial equity plan across the strategic roadmap, that's going to be key. And I'm glad to see, I think we've got almost everybody in support of that one. So really appreciate us making that a priority moving forward. Next one is supporting staff with allocation of budget resources. 6 is one that I felt was important. One thing I just want to emphasize, I know it's mentioned in some of these categories, but I think we need to focus a lot on succession planning. I know we're going to have a lot of staff turnover in the police department and other divisions. So trying to figure out ways to be more proactive. And rather than go through all the other lists, something else that I want to point out that I think is very, very important is I think we do an excellent job with engaging our community. I just want to see more continuity. I feel like information that comes out of the police department versus City Hall, it doesn't always match, and there's mixed messaging. So I think we need to do a better job of having a shared vision and shared messaging. That's going to be really, really important moving forward. And whatever we could do to increase employee morale and wellness programs, things that aren't going to cost us a whole lot of money, but improve work-life balance for our employees is going to be key. And just wanting to emphasize the importance of diversity within the entire organization. Thank you.
Great. Councilmember Salinas.
Right when I put a piece of candy in my mouth. Okay. I noticed that just right off the top, the TOT was talked about or put in there, and I don't think it's time to impose the TOT yet. We're still recovering, and so I hope that we can wait to implement any increase in taxes to hotels in the city. In terms of equity, I have to agree. Succession planning is important, and it's one of the main things I wrote here. I'm also concerned about retention. So it's sort of this retention succession dynamic that, I want to make sure that we retain good quality staff, high quality staff. And, because if we can retain and keep moving high quality staff, forward, then that will attract good talent. And so, and of course, with an equity lens, making sure that it's diverse and it's, a talented, diverse group of people. And a lot of that has to go, people often say, how do you, create a diverse pool? Well, you got to go out and recruit them. You have to invest in training. You have to invest in mentoring. And then, of course, when opportunities come up, you actually have to hire them. And so that's sort of where my head is when it comes to equity and hiring. The GARE work, I think the GARE work is important. Continue with that. And lastly, I know this was already said, but keep engaging the neighborhoods, surveys, communicating with them in multiple languages across the board. I think that's important. And that clearly informs our work. Thank you.
Councilmember Zermino.
Thank you very much. Important to me are the following, and I think they're all on here, and we want to make sure that they are prioritized one way or another. Foremost, employee morale, wellness, employee satisfaction, and job security, racial equity across all boards, personnel, make sure we have the right personnel, and if some need to be retrained, and then that's something that we ought to allow or permit, even a fund if possible. Budget reimbursements for our budget, extremely important. And then also, we sell ourselves short. We really do not tell everything, all the good stuff about Hayward to the rest of the community. I think that's a handicap on us, because we have a lot of stuff that we can tell folks about what we do well, and that will lead to the community being more in tune with what we are and what we accomplish and what we are planning to accomplish. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Holliday.
Okay. First of all, this was a big topic, and I think that a lot of this is really in the city manager's territory. A lot of the stuff around employee development. I mean, we can weigh in, and it's fine that we are, but I do think the city manager and her team, her executive team, have a better handle on some of this stuff and the need for it, or the ability. Sometimes you do something because it really isn't going to take that much time or resource, but it will have a good effect. So I really defer to her recommendations on a lot of this, but I do think that equity. I checked all the equity. I think that was 2, 3, and 4. Yeah. I mean, this is an area we all know we want to and need to continue to work on. I voted for the number 5, the lean innovation, because I keep thinking that this is what really helped us to do a lot of what we did during the COVID emergency. I highlighted the employee homeowner program because we've really developed it, and now more than ever, it would be nice to, for a lot of reasons, it would be nice if we could implement that. Obviously, returning to work is going to be a key focus, and I think we need to report to council about that, about what our policies are, how it has worked out. I'm all for, and I think the city manager does a good job on work-life balance for our employees, which, I think we all support, but we also need to make sure that the work is getting done. And finally, on the 2020 census, I checked that because really the shift now is toward redistricting. And if you haven't signed Councilmember Lambden's petition yet, I hope you will. I'm sure you all got it. And, she's got a real laser eye focus on this issue, but is starting to gain additional supporters like me. So I think, and even though we're not redistricting ourselves, I realize that we need to really look at the county redistricting and maybe some of the other agencies that, we work with. BART will be doing it, AC Transit. So, but mostly the county. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Wahab.
Thank you. To the mayor's point, I do believe that this is an internal process. Our focus should definitely be through policy, and obviously if there's certain policies that we want to implement within the city and staff, we should definitely focus on that. However, much of this is at the city manager's purview. I do want to highlight that one thing that was not here that I do believe is incredibly needed across the city is staffing level analysis. Staffing, we know that we have problems with staffing throughout the department. I know some people are focusing on maintenance, some people are focusing on the police department, some people focusing on other departments. I would like a staffing analysis done citywide, and not just the analysis, but also projections of what is needed based on the population growth of all the housing projects we've actually been approving. With hundreds and hundreds of people and families coming into Hayward, we definitely need to revamp, what our future is going to look like, not only on our streets, but in our schools and so forth. So I have not seen that at all, and I think that's a huge priority. I do want to highlight that the more we move into technology, the more it's going to cost as a person who works in technology. This is going to be a huge focus. It's going to be a huge shocker, sticker price wise, for our city manager and Director Clausen, because of the models that these tech companies are utilizing. So I really, really want to actually carve out a section of funds for that in particular. And then as far as, some of the other focuses, a lot of this we've already have been doing or have actually implemented. It's again, what are we going to look at for future? In regards to leadership and just staffing and equity and so forth. And when I say equity, I mean, again, staffing across the city. I don't want to reduce, or I actually want to increase our qualifications to be hired. Not only that, but then also just the expectation of what we expect from employees. We have to keep our standards high and, put a focus on that. I've heard a lot of things. I've heard from the public. I think that this is a big core focus as well. And then obviously work-life balance, of course, I definitely want people to feel comfortable and if they can work from home, so forth. The rest of my comments are definitely in the chat, but that's that for the time being. Thank you.
Councilmember Andrews.
Well, no surprise, I was the only one that highlighted upgrade water technology and security. I think just because of my background, it's always in the forefront of my mind. But, the city of Oldsmar, Florida, just had a cyber attack on their water treatment facility. And so I think when we think about technology, we always think about our computers, but I'm very concerned about our infrastructure. So I wanted to highlight that one. And then I do care about our employee benefits, fiber, and I do think it's important still to highlight local events just because the news outlets don't highlight Hayward in a very positive light. And so we have to toot our own horn and remind ourselves what is great about our city. So I do think we should continue to highlight that. And I do agree with hiring for critical positions and making sure we're getting FEMA reimbursements. COVID tracking is obviously very important. And I talked about equity earlier, so I won't go in more detail into that since I've already spoke about that. So those are the things on the top of my brain when I see this, but this is a lot of information. So thank you for trying to consolidate.
Thank you. Councilmember Lamnon.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the slide and realizing that I was 21B, not 22B, but I appreciate all of the noodling work that you guys are doing behind the scenes. And if I typed that wrong, I apologize, but really appreciate all of the work to do today's session. It's been great. And also appreciate the excellent work that's been happening in this area as well. Thank you, Mayor, for calling out the redistricting issue. I didn't think about that in terms of the census, but you're absolutely right that we're not done with that work yet. And then I echo my colleagues' comments about supporting our employees, both on the recruitment and retention components, and tried to vote for things that supported that. I'm 100% there with the using the racial equity lens on the strategic roadmap. My sense in voting for item 4 as opposed to 3 was thinking about that, as well as continuing to expand the capacity in the organization. The 17 or the 2 cohorts of GARE are phenomenal, and they are still a small portion of our employee population. So how do we give enough support to do all of the work we want to do there? And then incorporate, in terms of the COVID stuff, really my focus was about incorporating the learning and also the opportunities that presented themselves from COVID. What do we keep as remote working opportunities? What do we repurpose? What do we shift? And what is the technology that's needed to support all of that? I didn't know of specific item to click around system security, but I'm absolutely supportive of that and happy to reprioritize if that's not reflected. And I think that's it. And of course, thank you everybody for putting check marks next to the OPEB and CalPERS stuff.
Thank you, everyone. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We're 5 minutes over for this section. So I think we should move on to the sixth and final one. And so for that, I know Ms. Christelle is leading that, and the staff is
Mary Thomas.
Mary.
Hey. Yeah. Hi. So for this last, the quality of life is our last one, support quality of life. And I think as you can see from the projects, it's really encompassing a lot of the operational departments. So fire, police, library, maintenance services are all heavily featured, as well as some other projects. And partially because operations was so difficult during COVID and some of these departments were really pulled to do other things, we had to shift a lot of the timelines for this section, and there was a lot of work that was added. So some of the major new projects that most of you are really familiar with, but I'll go over them, is that we operated a long-term partial activation of the EOC. So one of the projects for this year actually was to practice the EOC, to do drills, but instead of doing a drill, we just activated it, including a rapid rollout of the VOC software, which is what we're using internally, and as well as the county is using to track our emergency operations center. We also launched and operate the COVID-19 testing site, the food distribution, and the vaccine operation is just up and running. You'll get some more communications about that next week. And then library transition to online library programming, including launching curbside services. They launched the tech lending library. There's currently over 800 devices out to students and literacy learners right now. And they also focused on designing the bookmobile program. There was also an internal homeless encampment task force. This has to do with housing, but it also appeared here because we had different departments, including maintenance services and police on that department as well to think through how we respond to encampments. In addition, new projects, maintenance services launched Operation Clean Sweep, which has divided the city up into different districts, and they're going in and doing some targeted cleaning. We also implemented the 2020 census community engagement. And then finally, the community safety project, which we've been mentioning in the GARE section, was launched this year unexpectedly. So that was conducting community engagement and public opinion polling in the fall. And then there's been a cross-departmental internal team meeting weekly to discuss this, which at this point we have dozens of staff that are helping work on this. And then finally, we'll be launching the policy innovation workshop to help design pilot solutions next week, next Thursday. So some successes and achievements. Shauna Lee, our fire analyst, does this great dashboard weekly on our COVID, where we're at with our EOC COVID response. So I just took some of her screenshots. But since March, this is, I think, a week ago when I took this, there's been over 60,000 or almost 70,000 tests taken. The vaccines just started, but I threw that up for some numbers. And then the call center has taken over almost 14,000 calls. I want to just give a sense of the staff impact for that. In order to operate this call center, we've had staff from city manager, police, like all throughout the city, we've had different staff. But for the library, for example, there's been 11 library staff that have provided over 800 hours to help keep this center running. And then distributing food from April 30th to January 20th, we were able to serve almost 30,000 families, and fortunately, we were able to hand that over to Chabot in the last couple weeks. Additional successes and achievements, we were able to provide relief fund cash grants to 650 families through the relief fund. The Youth and Family Services Bureau, they transitioned rapidly to telehealth platforms, and they were able to continue providing services to 2,400 youth and their families, as well as one of the projects in the strategic roadmap was to expand their service program, which they did, serving 154 additional youth through additional programming. The police received reaccreditation through CALIA this fall. The South Hayward Youth and Family Center, we have just continued the project. That's at 100% design development at this point. We could be ready for construction bids despite a funding gap as early as July. There were, on top of all of the rapid response that fire did for the testing center, they then pivoted and provided over 7,600 hours of mutual aid during this really rough fire season for this last summer and fall. And library, in spite of being mostly virtual, issued over 2,000 more new library cards, 3,000 curbside pickups, and then they had lunch programs that served almost 2,000 participants with 2,200 meals and 2,800 books. And finally, the Operation Clean Sweep and maintenance services has already been rolled out in 6 of the 10 city districts. I feel like I'm talking fast, but I'm trying to stay in 5 minutes. So considerations for this coming year. The number one, when I talk to all these different departments, the number one thing is that COVID-19 response is ongoing. We haven't, even though we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, it really hasn't slowed down in terms of our need to be out there responding to families. And then the second consideration is that the policy innovation workshop on community safety is running between now and mid-April. So we will have some recommendations on mental health response police programs. I know that's of interest to council. That will be, we're bringing back to you in April. And then a couple of funding needs. If the bookmobile was partially funded by a donor, but in order to have it fully operational, it will need some additional staff resources. And then the South Hayward Youth and Family Center project has a pretty large funding gap, though we are beginning fundraising efforts currently. And that, I'll hand it back to Christelle.
Thank you, Mary. Way to keep us going. All right, so back to our survey results here. We see for both the comfort with the draft revised project list and also whether these are the right projects to help us achieve this priority. The bell curve still in the middle, kind of around comfortable and agreeing, although we do have a little bit more leaning towards neutral and uncomfortable or disagree here. And then next slide, we have a long list of priorities at the top here. I'll just try to skim these real quick for people to keep in the back of their minds. A mention about needing to determine changes in light of USD eliminating the SRO program. I think that comes up a little later too. More emphasis on policing and improved community relations. Echo some what Mary talked about, finish Tennyson corridor, prioritize the stack, review what smoke stores can sell. We talked about this before, I think. Item 3 is now about exploring, testing, and implementing alternative response teams. Updated emergency services plan, need more info on CEQA, I think is what it was intended to say, although it said like CDEQA, so I wasn't entirely sure, regarding La Vista Park. Having encampment task force transition into single city county working group. Climate action plan is not well created or administered. The mental health CAT team not efficient or reliable. Changes to Youth and Family Services Bureau should be on the back burner. Library should be a priority. Fire plan, a stronger priority. Maintenance must be a priority. So I think that some of these will show up in our voting. There's a little preview. What to delay, we have La Vista Park and the South Hayward Youth and Family Center. In terms of what to drop, there's some questions in here. How does the removal of the SRO program influence the Youth and Family Services Bureau? So that also came up under the priorities. Does it make sense to drop the library assessment and strategic planning? Fire plan is it still a priority? And also, should we have an accreditation goal? All right, that was a mouthful. And moving on to additional projects that were recommended to add. We have implementing a pilot projects based on policy and innovation workshop. So again, staff has correlated these to projects that we think match in the existing plan. A plan to respond to community concerns with respect to policing, mental health comprehensive assessment teams, that's the CAT teams to be part of a patrol team. Mary touched on that a little bit. Evaluate role and scope of the police department community advisory panel. And then moving to the bike rack, recommendation to move to the bike rack, explore development of buffer fund for specific businesses and services to provide immediate relief for another 1 month shutdown. Explore forming an art and culture task force. And that came up a little bit previously today already. And then public safety and cleanliness are missing. And there's a mention here from staff that these are strategic priority projects above and beyond operational functions. Okay, moving into our dot voting. Hopefully, I know this is a lot to digest, so thank you for rolling with us today. We have a comparably manageable 9 votes this time around to distribute across only 1 page of projects. So we're going to keep this page up for you and give you some time to type your 9 votes into the chat box.
I'm sorry, Chriselle, did you say we have 9 votes or 8? I apologize, I didn't write down.
No problem, 9.
Thank you.
That's right.
I just have a quick question. 14D, that's rollout of the vaccination, correct? The last word is kind of, I think, misspelled on the slide.
Oh, actually, no, that was the VOC is the software to support the EOC.
Got it. Thank you.
No worries. That actually the vaccine. This list was formed before the vaccination, so I guess I would put that under the same as 14C if that's your priority.
Okay. Thank
We can
you.
lump those.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like we've almost received all votes and we're just working on adding the remainder. We'll have Selena start the discussion this time around. Mary and Jim, do you need more time? Looks like
Very close.
A little
Very
bit more
close.
time.
But you can just
But people can start their comments though.
okay. And just make sure we're ready to capture notes. And Salinas, why don't you get us started?
I keep getting confused because I look at my dot and I keep thinking Elisa, and I look at a blue dot and I keep thinking of me. So I'm just.
We'll make sure that we get the lavender right in the future. So I think we can get started with our comment period.
Mark, you're up.
That's you, Mark, right? It's Councilmember Salinas.
That's right.
Are you ready to go ahead?
Councilmember Salinas?
Can he hear us?
It seems not.
Maybe we'll come back to him, give him a minute.
Go to-
Ready?
I'll text him too.
So we've just gotten a message
Ready?
from Councilmember Wahab too. So I don't know what's happening here.
No. I just texted Mark through the chat. Can you hear
I
us?
see. Okay.
I'm ready. Cermeño's next.
Yeah, I'm ready to.
Zermanio's next. Why don't we just start with Zermanio?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, there was that one question about the SRO affecting the youth and family services, but I'm not sure if that's one of the priorities here. It should be looked into. Number 15, it talks about homeless encampment task force. In my mind, that should be part of the duties
Well,
of the
can you hear
task
me?
force
Can
on
you guys hear me?
homeless. And
Yeah, Mark,
can't
we
hear
can
anybody.
now, but we went ahead with Francisco, so we'll come back to you.
got it? Anyway, so that one should be, in
Hold
my
on, let me see
mind,
if I can. Wait.
Okay.
I'm texting with them to try and.
all right. So in my mind, that should be a responsibility of the task force on homelessness and housing. Let's
How
see.
about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I can hear you. I apologize. Go
That's
ahead.
okay. We'll move forward with Zervenio. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. And then we'll come back around to Councilmember Salinas. Thank you. Please proceed, Zervenio.
I left graffiti alone because we do have a graffiti buster in operation. That's good. I'm not on number 9. Number 9 talks about expanding existing support services. In my mind, this is something that should be taken care of or discussed by the advisory committee on police. And we have passed a vaping ban, but however, I have heard from quite a few of the smoke shop owners who are very confused about what it means in regards, especially in regards to the state regulations that are coming down the line. Good job. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And do you want to go ahead now, Councilmember Salinas?
Sure. I apologize. So yeah, when I think of, the quality of life question, I always, I know we have all these other, we have the services, fire, police, library, but if you look at the survey, the community surveys we've done over time, they've basically have been concerns in 2 areas: cleanliness and crime and safety. And so, regarding cleanliness, it's right now it's illegal dumping. So I put my dots here where it was relative to illegal dumping. And the other one is homeless encampments. So those are the 2 areas that I would really like to focus on moving forward. And then secondly, and this will be my last comment regarding, safety. And, my recommendation and what I hope to see moving forward is whatever move we make regarding the police department, regarding youth and family services, and services such as that, I just want to make sure we have, that we collect good, accurate data, that whatever decision we make, that we're making it informed by data. And that's, for me, that's going to be paramount. I don't want to make decisions based on, all these different pressure points that are all over the community. I just really want to pay attention to what the data says and how the data informs us. And I also want to make sure that we collect as accurate as data as possible so we can make great decisions regarding the safety issues that we're dealing with. So that's it.
All right, thank you so much. And Mayor Halliday, we'll rotate around to you.
Okay. I think and I'm one other person, I think. I should check the South Hayward Youth and Family Center. I will say that is coming along. And, we're in partnership with HARD and the county on that. It is, it's been years in the making. We've got a design pretty much. I think the council needs to be updated on where we are on that program. And, now we're at the stage of looking for funding, but we're ready to do that. So I want to see that happen in my lifetime. So that's why I checked that one. Then, number 2 and number 15, number 2 and number 7, in my mind, and maybe to some extent, number 15 go together in terms of the cleanliness aspect and I think when you beautify, as in the landscaping projects that have been planned, we ought to go ahead with those. They help, reduce that impression that, we're a dumping ground, I guess, and help maybe reduce dumping. So I kind of put those all together. The library 6A and B, I checked. I think, we need to get our library reopened and really look at, how we're going to continue to provide services. And what else? Let's see. Yeah, I think that, I put La Vista Park. That's also been talked about for a while. It's also a partnership with HARD, and there is money there for it, I believe. So that's an amenity to the community that I would like to see happen. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Wahab.
Thank you. I think number 17 was maybe a slip of the finger on the keys, because I know that we have a resolution coming hopefully next week. I want to say on the 22nd, 23rd, regarding census data and basically, things like that. So I would like to remove that because it's already in play. One of the things I wanted to say in regards to a lot of the mental health things and police related issues, whether it's the Youth and Family Services, whether it's the CAT team, things like that. I don't think that it should be necessarily here, primarily because we are currently working on it with the workshops in place. And again, with the CAT team and things like that, things are kind of moving in that direction as to what we as a city are going to provide. I understand the whole I believe in regional partnerships. However, we also have to take the lead on some things. And so for me, I want to say number 4 as a whole is incredibly important. I know that I've said this even in year 1 for myself, because as we know that COVID and other types of health pandemics could arise with more travel, more international flights, just how the spread of illness happens. We have not really developed a resiliency plan to be equitable throughout services in emergency situations throughout the city, whether it's certain ethnic groups, certain age populations, things like that. That has not been at all displayed to us, and we should take COVID as a learning lesson. So for me, that is going to be number 1 priority. Again, number 8 and 9 and things like that, it's under discussion right now. So a lot of the efforts around policing and the additional services besides crime fighting is being discussed as to how that works out. So I just want to say that I have removed that from my list, if you will. But I do believe that, and I think number 17, I was looking at just all the COVID-19 responses. I would like for us to move more in a tech-oriented services provided by the city. So for example, I think I started like this, 18, 19, 20, 21, everything is mobile. Everything is, whether it's the library services, city services as a whole, nobody should have to walk into City Hall to get something done. We've heard this from the businesses where they've reached out to us saying that, when we come to City Hall, it's closed or the hours aren't convenient or anything like that. As we are moving towards more tech supported services, we need to kind of revamp our services as a whole and how we provide these things to the city residents. So that is how I feel. And again, quality of life is basically, for me, is improving how residents interact with government. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on to Andrews. And just a reminder about the 1.5 minutes.
Yes, so I actually marked graffiti relief program just because I see a lot of graffiti. And I do think we need to revisit that program and try to couple it with public art as a deterrent. So I would like us to revisit that as an opportunity. I agree with emergency response planning. So I marked only 4A, but I agree with all of 4. I would like to also look at the CAP program. I understand that it is in different portions of this strategic plan, but that's very important to me to review. And then let's see, I have the South Hayward Youth and Family Center and La Vista Park. I think those are 2 attractions that can help with some of the amenities for our families. So I definitely wanted to keep that on our radar. And fire strategic plan. I think that is part of the emergency response that I'm looking at. There's a lot of fires that happen every single year, and it's always brought to our attention once a year how important fire safety is. So I really feel like a fire strategic plan is really important to implement as well. And Tennyson, finishing the Tennyson corridor all the way to Industrial or Hesperian, wherever it stops. I think it's really important that we finish that street for that side of the community. Thanks.
Thank you. And moving on to Councilmember Lamnon.
Thank you. Again, amazing work happening in this area. A couple of these I used as kind of placeholders for work yet even to come. So for instance, 9 and 3B around mental health services, alternative response. We don't know yet what that's going to be, but that was an acknowledgement that that's a ton of work and I want to prioritize it. And I concur with Councilmember Salinas' point about being data-driven in our decision making. We do need to construct La Vista Park for the reasons that were well articulated. Plus, I'll channel Councilmember Mendel for a moment on that. My hope is I didn't mark Gateway, the Tennyson and Jackson corridor, because I ran out of dots. But my hope is that we are continuing that work. And then in terms of item 15 on the homeless encampments, I completely understand that that is a huge part of the community concerns that council and city staff hear about, respond to, et cetera. My hope is that what we are doing in our strategic plan is moving from just a response mechanism to really a proactive place and not sort of continuing to do what we've always done and therefore hopefully getting some different results. So I'm hoping that we're looking at how we respond in a different way so that we can be preventative and proactive and really solution focused here. I realize there's going to be a transition time because not everything will ramp up right away, but that's my thinking on that priority. Similarly to the policing issue, 16 I marked as kind of, again, a placeholder for issues around Juneteenth, Black Lives Matter, recognizing Russell City, and other things that are, that are happening there. And lastly, on the emergency plan, I concur that we have a great emergency plan. There's some pieces that we probably need to update, and then some new opportunities, things like STEM core, 3D printing core, drone core, things that our community members skill sets that they have that might help with our emergency response too. But there's a lot there that we're still learning for COVID. So that's obviously a multi-year thing, but anything that we need to do to continue to be able to be resilient and responsive as we are falls into that category for me.
Great, thank you. And we'll wrap up with Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you so much. So yes, the conduct risk and resilience assessment with regard to the water system. I had also heard about the issue in Florida regarding around the time of the Super Bowl. So that's really important to make sure we're proactive in regard to that. Number 10, yes, I see a lot of activity around the railroad. Unfortunately, there's been, I don't recall the exact number, but a few deaths in the last maybe 4 to 6 years. So just wanting to make sure that those areas are staying clean and safe. For me, it's really important that we look at adding bathrooms to the Heritage Plaza. And hopefully I concur with the comments made earlier with the mayor and infrastructure. Want to make sure that we're on time with opening the plaza as well as finishing all the punch list items in the library. For me, I'll move 3A to 3B. Really want to roll out the CAP program and have more information and share that information with the public. Also want to look at expanding library hours. I know the library is closed right now and programming, but I think this is an opportunity to start surveying and looking at, once we're ready to open, adding Sunday or Monday, just how can we expand that opportunity for people to take advantage of. Illegal dumping is a huge, huge issue in the community. So I want us to do a better job at tackling that along with waste management and renewing our contract with them. La Vista Park, I don't want to delay that. I think this is an equity issue, and I did not select South Hayward Youth Center, but I would like to add that. I'll figure out which dot to take off, but that's going to be key in terms of equity. Those are areas of our community that have been historically underserved. So I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of those key projects. Looking forward to hear the information with regard to the vaccination rollout. I know we've been doing like a soft launch and that's going well, but excited to hear more information to share with the community about that. And in terms of public safety, I really want to have a clear timeline as to when we can start getting to policy discussions and making changes to ensure that everybody in our community feels safe, welcome, and that this is home for them. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Unfortunately, I don't think we have much time to have discussion with 5 minutes remaining. So we will hold the rest of the discussion for the discussion sessions upcoming. And we just want to wrap up briefly, and then we have a final League of Women's Voters item. But Jim's going to do some wrap up. And I just want to say personally, thank you all so much for hanging in with us. It's been a long day. You've put a lot into this. It's a lot to get through. And I really appreciate all of your, working together to recognize when, I'm the only one on that project, I'd be willing to remove my vote. Really, I see you pursuing consensus. So thank you very much. And Jim, back to you. All right, yeah, let's do some of this.
Big deep breath. I'm just about there. Thank you for all your good work. I'm going to echo everything Christelle just said. So, summarizing of themes. Obviously, we talked about prioritizing projects and aligning resources, the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion. And what I want to make sure that hits the staff that has been listening is I heard so many comments about the great work of staff. Like, people are so surprised and thankful for all you did. I hope that doesn't go in one ear and out the other, but really hits home. What's going to happen now is what we haven't heard that much from is the E-team members, but they've been listening in. We're going to give them a ton of notes, and they're going to take all this feedback that we've given them, not just from today, but from the surveys and the interviews, and they're going to go back and reprioritize their lists. And they'll have a give and take with you as they do that. And hopefully at the same time, they're going to align their budget requests for the next fiscal year on achieving these revised project lists. So those are the biggest takeaways from that. It's going to go back. The ball goes back to the court of the E-team to do it. And Jennifer has her hand up.
Once you're done, I just wanted to give a big shout out to Mary Thomas, who has been project managing this, and she worked with the mid managers, the managers on this. The E-team did not drive as much of this as we did the first round. So I just want to also give a big shout out to them for all their help in putting this together.
And as I understand, we have one more small.
Yes, so this is the mayor. Actually, I think several council members may have received a request to participate in a League of Women Voters forum to talk about the city's priorities. And I think the mayor had mentioned she would be willing to be the representative and kind of report out. But I think, Mayor, go ahead. I'll let you share if you wanted to just get feedback from the council on anything.
Okay, I think all of you should have gotten this. And I don't know, first of all, just maybe a show of hands as to how many are planning to attend this virtual event and participate.
I see 4.
2, 3, 4.
Okay, so, and if those of you have done it in the past, it's I'm not a fan of the of how they do this, but they say each agency gets one spokesperson. So first of all, for those of you who are attending, are you comfortable with me being that person? Seeing nods, I'm seeing, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess so. No, yes, of course.
Thank you. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if anybody has a real burning desire, but if there are more than one, then I think I should do it because I'm the mayor. And if there's no one, I think I should do it. So, but I do want your input, and I don't quite know how. I mean, we don't have a lot of time here, and our heads are full of so many things right now. Even I can't.
I would suggest, if I can, that you just give a brief update of our amazing COVID response. Our team has been phenomenal. So that's number 1. Number 2, focus on updating the strategic roadmap and the steps we're going to take to revise this, and leave it at that. Thank you.
We get 3 minutes for this. So that's very good. And I the COVID response would have been at the top of my list. Anybody else want me to wedge something in?
I think those are 2 good points.
You might highlight the 6 priorities from the roadmap, just mention them, and there's a significant amount of projects that are underway. And I mean, I think we can put some points together for you around that.
If you could mention also regional solutions, not city solutions, so that everybody works as a team, just like the Hayward City Council works as a team.
Okay.
I'll applaud. Sorry, I'll applaud that. And also, if there is, 30 seconds to touch on the GARE work, that's really remarkable.
Okay.
And that touches on the policing issue.
It does. It does. That's right. The COVID and the GARE, responding to the crises of last year, what we're doing in terms of the roadmap, and how we do work in so many ways with regional, with other agencies that are, they're going to be there. So a thanks and shout out to those partners we have, which probably includes every city, the county, all the other agencies. And okay. Thank you all. That was very helpful.
Mayor, I would just like to say that I would like to stress more so on the COVID leadership, because the city of Hayward has actually led on a lot of things around COVID, both for residents and businesses and the safety nets that we provide, but also more. And then also some of the work that we are actually taking seriously around public safety as a whole, because I know a lot of people feel stressed about, let's say protests, but then, it's a one and done. And we're actually spending a lot more time on it, trying to understand it better and make appropriate decisions for our city.
Yeah, so that goes in with the GARE and, public safety and what we're doing around that. Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Great. I had a final slide of fireworks that says, thank you so much. I think, Mayor, I need to turn it over to you.
Stop sharing.
Fireworks. So much fireworks.
Feel free to email me if you have any other suggestions or thoughts about the League of Women Voters thing. I want to say, first of all, thank you to Civic Makers. Although I have to say, I did have some consternation with the survey that I know that you're aware of. And I don't know that I ever want to do another Survey Monkey, but I know that I probably will have to. But thank you for your work on this. And thank you. And just a real big echo to our staff for their work. And just when you look at this list and what has been accomplished, what we're on track to complete in spite of the fact that we were in a pandemic, it's really amazing. And I'm really proud of our organization. And I want to thank you to all my colleagues. I think everybody really contributed a lot today. And the only problem is we can't, we'd have to go 24 hours for us all to really share everything we think. But I think people did a good job today of synthesizing. So I took a lot of notes. I'm sure everybody else did, but looking forward to the next session. And thank you all for taking your Saturday.
Mayor, can I make a comment?
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to express a great big thank you to Civic Makers, of course, and then Madam City Manager, I just really wanted to thank the executive team. Just the quality of work, over the last year, it has just been phenomenal. The innovation, the creative work, everyone, the library and their sort of immediate response to to kids and students in the city and supporting a lot of the work across agencies. And I mean, it's just every unit in this city has just stepped up, and I get a lot of great comments and compliments from people throughout the city about it. And I'm just so I know some of them are on the call here, but just please tell the E team thank you very much. And I just great, excellent work across the organization. Just fantastic. Thank you.
Very, very lucky. We have an amazing team. So
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye, guys.
I guess I can say, unless anybody else has anything burning to contribute, thank you all, and we are adjourned.